Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Roadorama's new car reviews. I'm your host Zach and this is the 2021 Subaru Crosstrek Premium. Now in today's episode we're going to be breaking down the features and functionalities of this car that make it my all-time favorite vehicle I've ever owned. And then for the road test we're actually going to take it off the pavement in the Black Hills of Wyoming and see just exactly what makes this vehicle the most fun you can have in a car that is, well, almost unbearably slow. Now, before I break down the features of the 2021 Subaru Crosstrek, I'd like to chat just about how I spent my time with this vehicle since the day that I bought it. About a week after I drove it off the lot brand new, I took it about 800 miles west of here to the Black Hills in South Dakota and a little bit of Wyoming, and spent 9 days living out of a tent and this car. Our goal wasn't only to have a great time and go camping, but also to put our cars through the test to see just exactly what they're capable of. And we took our cars on some really rough terrain. We encountered things like mud, gravel, rocks, dirt roads, paved roads, every kind of road you could imagine, and not once did we ever feel like these cars were going to fail us, except for one point when we were on top of a mountain in Wyoming and decided that, okay, maybe 12 plus inches of mud is just a little too much, we should turn around. At the end of the day, we got everywhere we wanted to go. We were able to camp in some amazing scenery, all because we had Subaru Crosstreks with the symmetrical all-wheel drive and enough space to haul around an entire week's plus worth of gear. But enough about that trip, let's get talking about the Subaru Crosstrek's features and functionalities. Now to start off the features on the car, we're going to talk about the front end. And first things first is your headlights. On the premium model, you've got dual halogen bulbs. So you've got halogen for the lows, halogen for the highs. You also have daytime running lamps in your headlights, and standard is going to be the fog lights that you see below. Now with the 2021s, you also get a newly redesigned front grille. It's a little bit thicker, looks a little bit classier than the years prior. And something else you're going to notice is in the windshield, you have these two camera lenses that are up there, and what those are is actually for your active safety features. But other things to note on the outside here, your windshield wipers themselves aren't heated, but in true Subaru fashion, you do have defrosters built into the windscreen here that will actually heat and de-ice your windshield wipers when it is below freezing and you have your defrost button turned on. Now looking at the side profile of the 2021 Subaru Crosstrek, we're going to notice that it has reasonably sized wheels. Those are 17-inch alloy wheels. They're painted like a graphite, closer to black, but also have the machined face finish on them, so they look super tough, super great in my opinion. I mean, they're one of the best looking stock wheels you can get on the market today. But you also get standard roof rack supports, so you can put your crossbars up there and add, say, a rooftop tent, a roof basket, or kayaks, anything like that. Something else you're going to notice around the edging of the car is this cladding. It's plastic, it's very thick, and what that's there for is not only to make it look tough and rugged, it also helps protect the paint on your quarter panels from being hit by branches and rocks, especially in those vital areas where if you're going off-road, that's something that tends to happen. Something else I added to help even prevent that more were the Rally Armor mud flaps, because I knew when I went on that trip to South Dakota that I would be experiencing some pretty rough and rocky terrain, and I really didn't want to have the rocks flicking up and hitting my rocker panels and, you know, destroying everything. And to be completely honest, those mud flaps were worth every penny. They're a little expensive, they're about 140 bucks, but I definitely can say they saved my paint. And the reason I know that is because my friend who also has these was driving in front of me, and I could watch everything hitting them and flying the opposite direction or straight down. Now looking at the Crosstrek, you're probably thinking that this looks almost exactly like a Subaru Impreza hatchback. Guess what? It is a Subaru Impreza hatchback. All they did was take the Impreza and lift it about 3.5 inches, put on some plastic cladding, and give it a new name. That's it. It is almost top to bottom the same vehicle. I'm sure the features and packaging changes a little bit along the trim lines, but all in all, chassis and interior wise, they're practically the same car. Now the Impreza, great for just driving on the road, but if you plan on doing anything off-road, I highly recommend upgrading to the Crosstrek just to pick up that extra ground clearance. This vehicle has about 8.7 inches of ground clearance, giving it almost as much ground clearance as my Tacoma that I used to have. Now, we definitely needed that extra ground clearance because there were a lot of obstacles that had we just purchased Imprezas on that trip to South Dakota, we would not have been able to get to the places that we wanted to go. So under the hood of the Crosstrek, we're gonna find a 2.0 liter, 152 horsepower, 4-cylinder boxer engine. Now, this motor is paired to a CVT transmission. A manual transmission is optional, but I opted for the CVT just because with these models that have the CVT transmission, you get a few more features, and also I'm getting sick and tired of driving manual cars that aren't fun. If I'm just sitting in traffic, man, I just want to be lazy. And something that I really picked up on and enjoy is exactly how smooth it is not having gear changes all the time, especially for my dog. You know, Subaru loves dogs. This is the first vehicle he's ever liked to ride in because there is no jolt of transmission switching from gear to gear to gear. Now, that being said, there are 7-gear ratios that it will go through as you accelerate, but you'll notice the power band is kind of like a snowmobile. It goes to a set RPM for the speed that you're going to and usually just stays right there until it needs to shift, and it pretty much picks up right back to where you left off and just gives you more power without having to bang through gears. So something worth noting when it comes to the engine in this car is if you bump it up to a sport trim level or a limited, you actually get a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder boxer engine, and it adds about 30 horsepower. Now, I never thought that this was lacking too much on the horsepower. You know, maybe accelerating to get on the highway, it's not the fastest car in the world. I mean, give it a break, it is a crossover. But I could definitely see how it would benefit from that extra horsepower gain when using it in those situations like traffic or on the highway. Now, enough about this. Let's hop to the back of the car and check out how much cargo space we have. Now, before we get into the cargo space offered by the 2021 Subaru Crosstrek, I just wanted to point out the rear of the vehicle and how well it looks, which realistically is very well. I think it is really, really fantastic looking, actually. But I do have one gripe when it comes to the rear end of the car. See, your brake lights and your running lights, all that jazz, are all in this cluster on the fender. This guy right here, all reflectors. There is no light strip inside of the red here. It doesn't illuminate when you press your brakes. It's just this here. So all of this is just reflector, and it looks kind of goofy at night, if you ask me, when you're behind the vehicle and see it light up the brakes. Now, when it comes to getting into the hatch, all you have to do is press the button underneath here to release it, lift it up a little bit, and then it does have a hydraulic assist. However, there is no button back here that allows you to press it and have this close automatically. You have to close it yourself, and all it takes is a nice little push and it closes. But back here, as far as cargo space goes, you have about 20.8 cubic feet to play with for your groceries, camping gear, and still have passengers in the back. But if you fold those seats down, you get about 55.3 cubic feet of space to play with. The nice thing about having that much space is, me personally, having lived out of this thing for 9 days, was that I had so much space to store my cooler, all of my camping gear, my tent, my bedding, everything you can imagine and then some, and I still had extra space to play with. In the back, I also do have some accessories, which would include the factory cargo cover, which when pulled out and placed, hides anything you have back here from passersby looking through your windows, but it also offers a little bit of sun protection if you have things like groceries and things in the back that you don't want sitting there baking in the sun on your drive home. And then I also have the cargo net, which stretches across 2 posts on each side to give you some extra immobile storage. Now, obviously, this is plenty of space for a small crossover or a hatchback, if you want to call it that, and I've yet to come across a situation where I didn't have enough cargo space for something that I wanted to haul in here. Obviously, there's going to be times when you're going to need a truck, no matter the size of your SUV, but that's pretty common knowledge. However, enough about cargo space. Let's hop into the interior and see what kind of features we're working with in the 2021 Subaru Crosstrek Premium. Before I start breaking down the interior of the Subaru Crosstrek, I just want to say that in true Subaru fashion, there are a ton of additional packages you can add into each trim level that give you all sorts of different gadgets. If you're interested in knowing what other options there are out there as far as packages go, I highly recommend going to Subaru's website and checking out the Build Your Own Crosstrek function. There's so many packages that it can get a little confusing, and quite frankly, I can make an entire video just outlining what packages are offered and how you can mix and match them in your Crosstrek, but I don't want to dig into that, so for the sake of this video, we're just going to talk about the features that my Crosstrek has. Now, when it comes to the interior of this Crosstrek, I've got to say they knocked it out of the park when it comes to sportiness. With just the overall look of the interior, having so many crazy angles and the faux carbon fiber, even down to the stitching in the seats and in the dashboard being that bright, vibrant orange that everyone knows and loves from the Crosstreks, they really did knock it out of the park when it comes to just the interior look. Now, the interior feel, it feels open. It feels like an open concept apartment. Everything feels very arid and open and far away, yet still close enough to operate. The windows are ginormous. You're almost driving around in a fishbowl. You have so much viewing abilities. With the A-pillar window here, it may not do much, but it does a lot as far as feeling like there's a lot more space. Same with the little windows they added by the C-pillars in the car. They don't really do much, but they still add to that feel that you can see much more. It just feels so open. Before I get into all the infotainment features and steering wheel and gauge cluster, all that, I just want to point out that I am a tall guy. I like headspace. I do not have a moonroof because I figured that would probably be a little bit of an issue with a guy as tall as me at 6'3". But I did make sure to get the option to have the heated cloth seats, which is my absolute favorite. I've never owned cloth seats before that were heated. I've never owned heated seats before. Now, something that was a package that I did make sure too that was in here besides the heated seats was the HomeLink mirror. I got really sick and tired of having like my parents and my garage door openers up here or somewhere hidden in the car. This mirror allows you to program each one of 3 separate garage doors into a button on the underside. It also has a button to turn on and off the auto dimming function, which allows you to turn that on and really keep it on all the time so that when there's a car behind you with super bright headlights or maybe the sunset is hitting just right, it hits the mirror and then it dims so it doesn't blast you back in the eyes and blind you while you're driving. Something else to note if you're the adventurous type or you're like me and just really bad with cardinal directions anywhere besides at your house, it does have a built-in compass, and when we were out driving around in the wilderness, it did actually come into play because at times we were told you have to head east here or west there, and you just have it right here all the time so you know exactly where you're heading. Now, moving over to everything we really care about, the steering wheel to start off on the Premium is leather wrapped with the orange stitching, very sporty, very impressive looking. Everything is exactly where you want it. On the left side, you have your infotainment controls, which is your seek for switching radio stations or your music on your choice of music apps. You have your volume button right below that. You have the source button to choose what you're listening to or, where it's coming from, FM, AM, XM, iPod, whatever. And then you also have your phone controls for hanging up, answering the phone, or voice controls, which is the same as answering the phone button. And on the right side, you have your cruise control buttons, you have your set, your reset, you have the activation button, you have your proximity between you and the car in front of you for your adaptive cruise control, you have your button for lane centering assist and active steering control, and then below all that you have your SI drive mode buttons, which the S stands for sport and the I for intelligent. Now when you start the car and you're in intelligent mode, that's just basically a normal drive mode to help get you the best fuel economy and a regular comfortable drive. And the S, which stands for sport again, is tightening up your steering to give it way more responsiveness on tight corners, and it's also giving you a lot more throttle response and drags out your gears a little bit before it shifts. So it gives you a higher power band for more power when you're trying to accelerate. Now, speaking of drive modes, you also have a button down here right next to your heated seat controls called X mode. In this vehicle, it has one mode for X mode. You press that button and a big X mode logo pops up on the center screen between your tachometer and your speedometer. And you're gonna notice that for one, it turns off your start stop. Now, real quick, this car does have stop and go technology. That's when you come up to a stop and you're there for a few seconds, it'll turn off the engine to help save gas. And then when you lift off the brakes, you'll start going again. Back to the X mode, say you're going on rough terrain. obviously you don't want to go fast. So in low speeds, you'll press this button. It's going to engage a few things. It's going to help keep your throttle response very low so that you don't accidentally go too fast over an obstacle. It's going to help your wheels stop slipping. Say you touch the brakes or maybe you accelerate and one of the wheels starts to slip, say in mud or on something wet or loose like gravel. It's going to use the braking system and stop that from happening to kind of keep everything moving the way it should. Now, on downhill, when you're off-road and using X mode, it's actually going to help slow you down. It's almost like, I don't want to say cruise control for going downhill, but it is something close to it. It doesn't want you to go too fast. It almost helps engine brake and using your brakes and ABS system to prevent you from speeding down a hill in rough terrain. And as you're driving, you'll actually hear your ABS module firing whenever a wheel slips or it starts going too fast to help keep that from happening. Now, talking about drive modes, I want to point out that this is a four-wheel or all-wheel drive vehicle. It's symmetrical all-wheel drive, something I didn't cover on the exterior of the car, but we'll get into that real quick right now, meaning it puts power evenly distributed to each wheel in the car, and along with that X mode, it's actually helping distribute torque to each wheel as necessary. Overall, really great off-road, on-road, wet roads, snowy roads, gravel roads. It keeps you going where you want to go. Point it and go there. It's very simple. Now, you can push this car past its limits and still have accidents, but with 152 horsepower, you're not really working with much, so you'd really have to try to get this thing out of its comfort zone and to do something opposite of what you're trying to accomplish. So, still speaking on drivetrain, it is a CVT transmission. However, you can put it in manual mode instead of just drive, and you've got these paddle shifters here on your steering wheel where the left one is downshifting, just like if you had a manual transmission and you went from third to second gear, or on the right side you have upshifting, which puts you from, say, second to third gear. Overall, at certain speeds, it will dictate what speed you can shift to, but there's actually 7 gear ratios in this to play with, so if you're getting on the highway and you want better MPGs, whether you're cruising or using the manual mode, you can get to 7th gear to help restrict that fuel spending and still get good gas mileage. Now, moving on to infotainment systems, in here you have 3 screens total to play with. You have your main infotainment system here, which includes Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, FM, AM, XM satellite radio. It has Bluetooth phone connectivity, or again, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, one of my favorite features. Plug in your phone, whether it's an Apple or Android product, throw that on the USB in there, and then it will reflect all of the apps that work with those Apple CarPlay and Android Auto systems to be able to project those onto your screens. Now, behind that main infotainment system, you're going to find set back in the dashboard and hidden a little bit by this sun visor is another screen, which is very basic in this model. It shows you the current time of day, the outside temperature, and then if you have your AC activated, it'll show your automatic AC temperature you're set to. It'll also show you your fan power, and it shows you your settings as far as if you have recirculatory air on or exterior air, and it also shows you where you're pointing the air, whether it's through your vents up here, by your feet, or your defrost. For your final screen in here, it's wedged right between your tachometer and speedometer. This will show you not only your mile per gallon rating, which right now idling says is negative real bad because, well, we're not driving. And then on the bottom, it's going to show you your fuel tank capacity and how much fuel you have left. It'll also show you your odometer and then your trip odometer, what gear you're in, as well as what drive mode you're in, whether that's sport, intelligent, or manual. And when you're in manual, it'll show you also what gear you have selected. Now, if you press the button on your steering wheel for either your cruise control activation or your lane centering assist, you're going to find a rear view of a Crosstrek looking forward pops up, and along with that we'll show you 2 bars illustrating if your eyesight can see the lines on the road to help keep it centered. It's also going to show you the distance you have set between you and the car in front of you for your adaptive cruise control, and then when there is a vehicle in front of you, it will even display the rear end of another, I think, Crosstrek that would be in front of you, illustrating that it knows that there's a car there. And then the upper portion of the screen is controllable via these tabs that you can pull on the rear and bottom side of the left side of your steering wheel. Will show you things like your digital speedometer, time since you started the vehicle, trip time, all sorts of information like that. Now, on the topic of lane keep assist, lane centering, and radar cruise control, I want to touch on the eyesight package before we get into the test drive. With this specific Crosstrek Premium, I have lane keep assist, which alerts you when you cross over a line on the road when you don't have a blinker on. It has pre-collision systems so that if you're at a low speed or even a high speed and you come across a vehicle in front of you that you're about to hit, it will alert you, but also try and activate the brakes harder than humanly possible to try and prevent that collision or just to help lessen the damage. Now, the lane centering assist while you're cruising down the highway or above 40 miles per hour, it's actually going to take control of your steering wheel slightly to help keep you in the middle of your lane. Something I found is you might find yourself fighting against it if you're used to hugging the left or right side of the lane, and if you let go of the steering wheel, it will kind of jolt you back into the center. So what I find is resting your hands on the steering wheel and letting it tell you where to go, keeping in mind if it glitches, you need to control it to correct it. It's kind of insane because you're going around the highway and this thing is literally pulling your hands for you, guiding you around corners up to a certain degree. Now, one really cool feature about that eyesight is something that I had read about and didn't get to encounter until I was in a drive-thru at a restaurant and decided to try it out. Was there's a system in here that when you're parked behind another vehicle in drive and that vehicle in front of you drives away, like say at a stop sign or in a drive-thru, and you don't move, it gives you a few seconds and then will actually pop up a picture on here that looks like it's right out of a fighter jet with like a target on a rear end of a car, and it says that the person in front of you has moved and it beeps so that it alerts you. So if you're at a stop sign looking at your phone, it will tell you that you need to get moving. So something last to note about eyesight is this vehicle does not have it, but it is available in certain packages that you can add to the vehicle, is blind spot monitoring. So this one does not have the light in your mirrors that tell you that somebody's riding in your blind spot. It's a really good idea to opt for that feature because if you don't see somebody that's there, the car will tell you that they're there, and it's just another layer of extra safety to help not only protect yourself, but other drivers on the road. Now, there's a lot of stuff I could talk about Subaru's eyesight system. However, that would be another whole video's worth of content. So if you have any more questions or want more information on Subaru's eyesight packaging, head on over to Subaru's website, check out the eyesight page, and I'm sure you'll find all of your answers there and then some. Now, beyond the eyesight, as far as basic safety features go, you have a backup camera when you put the car into reverse. You have variable intermittent windshield wipers. You also have automatic headlights, so you can just switch your headlight into automatic mode, and when it gets dark, it'll turn those on for you, and you don't have to touch anything besides obviously to turn on your high beams. Now, something that I didn't really touch on before was the back seat space. I'm not gonna hop back there because I don't believe it's very necessary. Just take it from me, I'm 6'3", and I can sit back there just fine, even seated behind myself as my seat sits now. Now, I think that's enough about the interior features of the car, so let's teleport ourselves 1,000 miles away to test drive this vehicle off the pavement and on dirt, rocks, mud, and gravel to see what this Subaru's capabilities are really made of. So for the test drive portion of this video, you're probably wondering why I'm wearing different clothes, if I am. We're on a vacation right now, so I'm recording basically when I can get a chance to. But right now, we are driving down a dirt road in the middle of Wyoming looking for some Forest Service trails so we can find some dispersed camping. So something about the Subaru Crosstrek is if you're buying this, you're probably an adventurous person, or you just live in a place that gets a lot of snow. And it's very useful for either of those situations. I haven't gotten a chance to drive it in snow yet, but on dirt and loose traction surfaces, this thing is a beast. Never once, even in my hooliganry, have I felt like I was going to lose control. I mean, this thing has so many electric assist features if you keep them turned on. Vehicle stability control, traction control, and on the pavement, you get your lane keep assist, lane centering assist, all that fun stuff. But for off-road use is the main part of this video that we're going to focus on. It's just fantastic. I mean, it doesn't ever feel too rough. It just kind of glides over everything, and it feels really good. So up ahead of me, we have my friend River, who is driving his Crosstrek, which is outfitted almost exactly like this. His just has the approach lights and dimming mirrors on the outside. But he's had his car for a little bit longer than me. I've had this for, again, 2 weeks. So getting to actually put this thing to use when I started this journey with 400 miles on it, I now have 1,814, as we drive through this here dirt road. I've got to say, this thing has treated me so well so far. You know, it was a little nerve-wracking taking a brand new car on an adventure like this, but I mean, just look at the possibilities of the things that you're able to see out here. Having a vehicle that's capable off-road, having a vehicle that you feel comfortable with driving on loose gravel and dirt. I mean, this thing is just a beast. Now, it's not particularly fast, however. 150 plus horsepower in this model with the 2.0 liter. Now, you can upgrade to the Sport or the Limited. That will get you the 2.5 with about 189 horsepower, I want to say. And I've got to say, this here, perfect for me. I don't ever feel the need to want to go fast. If I want to get up to highway speeds, it'll get there, no problem. Uphill, downhill, performs just perfect. So, is it worth the upgrade? Especially with all the other stuff like leather trimmed seats and things like that, I think so. But for what my needs were and where I wanted my price to be, this ticks every single box. Now the nice thing is too is without having too much horsepower and torque, when you're going down a gravel road like this, it never really wants to break out from underneath you. It really just wants to kind of hold its own and keep driving. You don't really seem to find, unless you're being, you know, an idiot behind the wheel, you don't really seem to find it wanting to lose traction and lose control. This whole trip, driving from my home of Wisconsin all the way out to South Dakota and now Wyoming in this thing has been so comfortable, and being able to do all these things just willy-nilly pulling off the road and going and attacking these roads, I'm just in love. Can't wait to try it in wintertime, that's for sure. Something that I really like is, yes, it does have a CVT transmission. I did not opt for a manual because I wanted features. I wanted all the features of the Premium, so I had to get the CVT transmission. But with the optional, or not optional, but with the paddle shifters, being able to downshift, you know, air quotes, downshift when you're going down hills and saving your brakes, and being able to have some fun when you put it in manual mode and you're off-road and you're, you know, hauling down trails and you're able to control your shifting and gear speed, absolutely fantastic. It's very rapid shifting. It's actually quicker than a lot of sports cars I've driven, which is surprising. It really just makes it a more engaging and controllable drive. Now, I will say too, the tires that come on the Premium are the Yokohama Geolanders, and I've got to say too, I mean, on the dirt, they just want to go. Perfect and quiet on the highway and on the road. Out here, same thing. You don't hear too much of them. It's an enjoyable drive. Man, would you just look at this scenery. This is absolutely beautiful out here. Mind you, we've never been on this road before. We just found it on the map and said, hey, let's see if we can find a camping spot. So this is just absolutely fantastic. Sitting in the driver's seat, if you watched my last video, my Tacoma that I traded in for this Subaru Crosstrek, the seating position for somebody my size, I forgot what it feels like to have a car properly fit for a giant at 6'3". The steering wheel is very adjustable. The seats are very adjustable. The only thing that you don't get in this model is lumbar support adjustments, which for me is a little important. I have a messed up lower back, but the seating itself is so comfortable that I honestly could live without it with this car. Now, these are the types of roads that, minus the cattle guards, would make for great rally stages. I come from a land where there are no dirt roads. Wisconsin is all paved everywhere you go. And if you're from Wisconsin and know where there's some dirt roads, let me know, because I'd like to go eat them up. But out here, I mean, almost every road off the highway is just dirt, and it's so fun. Honestly, 3-4 weeks ago, I didn't really think this trip was gonna happen, and now that it came together, and I'm doing it in this is the play, was the play the whole time, and I have zero regrets getting this Crosstrek. So if you're thinking about buying one, take it from me, take the leap and get a Crosstrek, especially if it's your first Subaru. It is the right move. Also, cows, free roaming. Little guy, you're okay. But it's just nuts out here. With all this free roaming cattle land, being able to drive out here, having the freedom of the open road, whether it's dirt or paved, is just so cool. What do we got? Please do not block road. I did not plan on it. Hello, cows. Moo. This is just something else. We're literally just driving through a cattle pasture on public road.
Try not to hit a cow.
You don't want steaks tonight, son?
If they get in your way, just honk at them.
Sounds good, boss.
I'm gonna try to avoid getting this on my tires too. It's gonna stink.
Moo. This is just something else. Goodbye, cows. And we've got deer over here too. What are we, in a Disney movie? This is just so crazy. Boink. And more deer. Uh-oh. Alright, what'd he say? I don't think we can make it. As I say that, I don't think we can actually make it where we're trying to go.
It's impassable up ahead. There's a couple feet of snow and there's a couple guys stuck up there, so we're gonna have to go back to that Y.
Oh, that doesn't sound too
Behind
good.
me.
I can't really see that low, but you look fine. You should be able to pull right out. All right. Let's get this bitty turned around. So it seems we have reached an impasse. Which means we've got to go back the way we came. And that's what happens when you're out here in the wilderness driving around, is sometimes you just reach things that even trucks can't get through, and when that happens, the Crosstrek's got to turn around. So I turned the camera back on because, well, as you can see, we've found a road that may be less than favorable in comparison to the one that we just turned off of. Signs back there said impassable when wet. They're county service roads, and we're not sure if we can really make it through in these things because all cars do have limits. So we're gonna see what we can do. So in this situation, we're gonna go ahead and engage X mode, which gives you torque vectoring and a bunch of other fun stuff. But we really got to be picky about how we drive over this, because you can't really tell, but there's about 8 to 12 inches of ruts where we're driving over right now. So we're just gonna send it nice and cautiously. And hopefully we make it through. Trying to protect that oil pan. There we go. A little slippery. Thinking it's time to turn off X mode, maybe. Yeah, we'll turn her off. This looks good. Yeah, that spot back there, very deep ruts, something you want to try and avoid, but it was nice and dry in comparison to some spots. This spot's a little sketch. All right. Well, Scooby, that good. Let's go. Definitely don't want to be sliding, because that is a sheer cliff drop off right to my left. But without any question about it, we are making it.
It looks like it's gonna get real hairy real fast if it just suddenly gets wet. Even though it is dry out here right now, you just never know. Sometimes it's hard to tell when something's wet. You might just all of a sudden sink in.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not excited about that. At least up on this hilltop, it's nice and dry, but it would suck for a freak rainstorm to come through. That's what I'm saying.
I'm more worried where they said that one road was impassable because of snow. I'm just worried about something similar like that happening. I'm worried it might have melted somewhere, you know, and all of a sudden it's just wet in one spot where it's like in the shade and you can't really tell.
100% agree. Get some power going up this hill. It's beautiful up here though. Turning traction control off to keep the momentum of my tires spinning so that they don't lock up on me if I start to slow down. And that always helps too. But so far, she's handling it like a champ. You can probably see on my face in some spots where I'm like a deer in the headlights, but overall, I mean, this is just a different environment than what we've driven on so far, so it's always a new experience. Especially as someone like me who has never been an off-roader. It's all new. Oh wow, look at all the elk.
Well, that's a lot of elk.
That's a lot of elk. Oh my Lanta. Look at that. That is something you just don't see every day. Yeah, I saw a head pop up when we were driving back further and I was like, ooh, deer. And then we came around, I'm like, oh my Lanta, those are elk. How amazing is that? That is just amazing. Things you do not see where I'm from. Just crazy. X mode on, and we're gonna go up and over and stay to the right. And then hard left to avoid rocks and mud, and we're back.
This road would be an absolute nightmare if it was wet.
I'm slowly becoming less and less of a fan of it as we move on. And of course, we find a field of rocks. So this should get interesting here. Gotta remember to take it nice and easy. Again, X mode is on. Keeping an eye on our tire pressures. Last thing you want to do is drop a tire up here. However, it is nice to have a vehicle that can do this, and so far hasn't even broken a sweat. The first time we did anything like this, I was very nervous just because I had my doubts, but now this is just absolutely fantastic. So for now, I'm gonna go ahead and kill the camera, and when I see you back, either we're gonna be in some gnarly terrain or closing off the video. So I guess we'll see what happens. So we ended up not being able to find a spot, and we ended up also having to turn around due to some very, very wet and muddy conditions that we didn't even want to try to attempt when you're up on top of a mountain with no cell signal. So for this episode, we're not going to do anything too crazy off-road, and we're going to leave it at that. So if you liked the video, please remember to subscribe and ring the bell for alerts, and comment below what you thought about the video, what you think I can do better, and what you think I was doing good. And if you have any remarks, if you own a Crosstrek, please leave your thoughts in the comments as well. But until next time, I will see you on the next episode of Roadorama's New Car Reviews.